Hello everyone and welcome back to the Grimm Reader. I come to you today with a mid-year reading assessment, or as it's commonly called on the YouTubes, the mid-year freakout tag. And yeah, just to sort of talk a little bit about my reading. And what's funny about it is it's obviously made for people who kind of read different types of things than I read, but I thought it would be a good idea to do it anyway. And welcome to any new viewers that are here on my little channel. Let's see, the best book you've read so far in 2022. I have a couple of contenders, but I am going to go with a new to me author who's absolutely become one of my favorite authors in the whole world, and it is Margaret Young's Angel in the Forest, which is a supremely strange but wonderful non-fiction description of the utopian community of New Harmony in southern Indiana. And I have lived most of my adult life in the Midwest, so Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and now Ohio. And when I was in Indiana, we did get to visit New Harmony. I have an interest in utopian communities somewhat, and it was just delightful. And this book is very strange. She's a very strange mid-century writer, who I'll talk about again, I think, for another question. And this is all about, if you know about New Harmony, there were two kind of leading people connected to it. First is Father George Rapp, a German mystic, who came and actually founded the community, and application of scriptural communism to daily life. And then he gives it up to another sort of socialist person, namely Robert Owen, a Scottish man who came to the New World and bought the whole town from Rapp, who had moved on to other places in Pennsylvania. And her style is really, really good and very kind of, her writing is exquisite. From a sentence to sentence level, she just pulls you in a kind of hypnotic way. It's at a very high level. It's very mesmerizing and wonderful. And what's great about this book is that it's very literary, but it is a nonfiction book about these towns, but she just does it in such a good way. It's just, you kind of are lulled in and drawn along into the story of these people and the place. Here's just one tiny example of her style. Later on in the book, when Rapp is left, I guess maybe even Owen has left. It says here at the beginning of this chapter, it's called Exodus from New Harmony, quote, "Life and its negation seemed inexorably bound together, an essential condition of existence, as if happiness delivers us only from one want to another, an empty longing. The science of society, even though unrealized, had seemed more oppressive than God's order." That's referring to the two utopias, Owen and then Rapp. "The ebb and flow of the human heart, the secret life, the longing, the suffering." Yes, so it's as if she has a really kind of interesting view of the totality of human existence, if one were to say that. And she takes this sort of, I think she's a brilliantly moral writer, and she has a vision, and it's a very humane vision, very sort of somewhat sort of, and so she looks at socialism or socialistic enterprises in a kind of benevolent way, just because she understands that these people wanted to do something. And then she kind of describes how, in that sentence, you know, the fact that people are people and it all didn't, and the eccentricities of the people in charge kind of got in the way of these places really being a success. So it's an absolutely wonderful nonfiction work by a fantastic writer, Margaret Young. Her dates basically the 20th century. So she was born, I think, in the 1900s, and I am peering over here at my tabs that I have open. Yeah, 1908. She was born 1908 and died in 1995. Was born in Indianapolis, and she went around to the various places. She got her degrees from Chicago. I don't know if she got a PhD. She got an MA, and then she started teaching. Yes, she did get a PhD in philosophy from Iowa, because she was really involved in the teaching of writing, and she was really very well connected to all of the main writers of her time. She had a kind of interesting life, never married, but had connections and relationships with people. And I love her. I think she's great. I think she's in a fantastic find. The best sequel, this is a funny one, but for me, it's a very typical one for me, is the second in Émile Zola's 20 novel cycle about the family. It's called in French the Les Rougon-Marquardt cycle of 20 novels. And its subtitle is Natural and Social History of a Family Under the Second Empire. And so he kind of does there's apparently an essay about Balzac's Comédie romaine and comparing the two. He does. And he says that the Balzac is more interested in a mirror of all society, whereas he wants to hone in on one family to kind of extrapolate bigger themes. Reminds me a little bit of Thomas Mann's Buddenbrooks. And this was really a great read. It was more entertaining to me than the first one in the 20 cycle, which I have here. But that, I have a feeling if I went back and read this, I might enjoy it more now. I'm kind of getting into the flow of things. But this one also focused on more people, whereas this one had a kind of narrow focus. One guy and his rises and falls in society of this time. And I did do a little bit of a peek into the history of the Second Empire, which now I won't, you can go look for my videos. But I really love Zola. I love him more than Balzac, but I am sort of, tell me if you've read Balzac and what you would recommend. I've read one Balzac that was okay, but it was just a little bit too, everyone was awful. And most people are awful here too, but they're more entertainingly awful. And they're not completely awful. You just like them better. Even the main guy, he's awful, but he's sort of, the one I read, and I think it was Cousin Pons, it's as if Balzac was too harsh with his characters. I don't know. I don't want to dismiss Balzac, of course not. But let me know how you feel. Are you team Balzac, or are you team Zola, or team none of these? Probably most people. I love this stuff. This is my favorite sequel, and I already have a couple more to go. And I really do like the Oxford Classics. I do like this series very much because it does give you a bit of context, just enough context, so not overly footnoted, but enough to, you always have to have 2 footnotes because it does sort of give you stuff in the back, and that's useful. That's my favorite sequel. The new release I'm sort of anticipating is the new book by Ottessa Moschweg, which I have now read a review of, and so I kind of know what to expect. Lapvona. She's a really, really interesting writer. I really kind of enjoyed My Year of Rest and Relaxation. And I kind of want to read other ones of hers, maybe even before Lapvona, but Lapvona is a new one, and it's a departure because it takes place in a fictional medieval village, which is of course a metaphor, and it's supposedly very dark and fixate on, I'm looking at the New York Times, ugliness and pain. And even though it's a completely different novel, but because it seems to foreground ugliness and pain and violence, it gave me little memories of my favorite read of last year, which was Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, which I thought was absolutely fantastic because it was so well written. And I didn't really mind the ugliness and pain depicted in there. It was an integral part of the story. And as an aside for people who have been following me a little bit more closely, before I went to Germany, I did start All the Pretty Horses, and I kind of got stymied with it. It's more conventional, and it didn't suck me in as much as Blood Meridian did, which Blood Meridian sucked me in from the first page, and I went on. And so I'm not sure whether I'll go back to it. I should, but there are other things that have kind of come up in the place of it. So I hate it when you leave things hanging, but I have left All the Pretty Horses maybe for another time. So Lapvona is the one that I'm most interested in. I'm going to skip over questions that I'm not answering, so that was kind of a combination of 3 and 4. So my biggest disappointment, people who have seen the weekly videos will perhaps not be surprised to see that it is William Gass's On Being Blue, which I'm going to retitle On Being a Sexist Blowhard, because that's how he comes off in here. Even though he obviously knows how to write, he's also another mid-century person, philosophy professor, wrote these dark, gloomy novels about men, which I'm actually still kind of interested in. This is nonfiction. This is about supposedly the color blue, but he focuses on its sexual kind of stuff and philosophical or psychological blue movies, etc. I'm looking at the first sentence. Blue pencils, blue noses, blue movies, laws, blue legs and stockings, the language of birds, bees, and flowers as sung by longshoremen. that lead, etc., etc. So his writing is very good. It does, even when it's not being sexist and blowhardy, it does strike me as a little bit too like show offy. But that could be because I've decided I really hated this book because I thought it was sexist and kind of in a like look at me being so shocking type way. And I hate when you get that sense from a writer. Look at me being such a, you know, sexist fun guy. Ugh, it just makes me sick. And just as an example here of a terrible sentence, after describing a terrible passage from a book where a woman is assaulted, it just says here, when a character will not oblige by using a truncheon as a penis, the author must manage the shift himself. Okay, we get what he's doing there, but it's still kind of awful, I think. I think it's awful, and I was completely disappointed. I thought I would love this. I thought it would be more about depression. I think someone said that in the comments, but it was not really that much about depression. It was about how sexist he is and how he wants to turn every novel into, at the end he has this, like he tries to make a scenario interesting, and the way he does that is he wants the woman to, why doesn't she slip out of those blue jeans and roll upon the floor in an agony of desire? Make me cry. It just was a big disappointment, and it's put me off gas, even though I'm still kind of interested in him as an author. Anyway, definitely by far the biggest disappointment. So for biggest surprise, I have two options here. I think I'll go with, just because I had no idea what I was getting into. This is a novel I just finished that I'll talk more about on my weekly reads. Elizabeth Bowen is a fantastic writer, Irish Anglo writer of the 20th century. She's up there with people like Woolf and Henry James. Her ability to depict sort of the undercurrents of people's relationships and feelings and make, very subtly references to deep feelings. I really like that. And her fiction is very interesting. And one thing she does a lot is describe external space in a kind of anthropomorphic way. Summers prove to be eventful, which is not a very good example of it, but there are other examples of the weather shifting in ways that are reminiscent of the characters' mind shifts or emotional shifts. Excellent writer, and a bit of a surprise. And of course the other one is Margaret Young. And I'm almost ready to talk about the other thing from her because it connects to my favorite character question. So we're moving on into new author was Bowen and also Young, and the favorite character is Miss Mackintosh. And I will put in a picture of her lying on top of the manuscript. There's a famous picture of her because the thing about this book, which is called Miss Mackintosh, My Darling, is its claim to fame, and you can't really get it, well, you kind of get a sense, is that it's one of the longest novels ever written. And I haven't read it in months, but it's still dear to my heart. I'm only on page 146. This is literally going to take me years to finish. But I absolutely love the writing. Now, so this is a novel. This is the same lady who wrote the nonfiction about New Harmony, and this is her novel, and it's hypnotic, fascinating. It's just about this lady who, in a certain sense, is kind of like a Mary Poppins figure. She looked after the narrator of the novel, and this is a love letter to this lady that looked after her. And just to give you a sense of how strange the novel is, here's a short description of the character of Miss Mackintosh, which doesn't give you a sense of how fantastic the novel is, but it gives you a sense of the wackiness. There is a wacky factor here. So Miss Mackintosh is so the main lady who's telling the story is Vera Cartwheel, and she describes Miss Mackintosh is someone who disappears and she's searching for her. And here's how Miss Mackintosh is described. Completely bald and hairless since birth, she was hit by a bus in Seattle and had one breast amputated. She strongly disapproves of electric lights, which I haven't recalled that yet. Named relatives include, etc. And so the scenes that I remember of Miss Mackintosh are her running around on the beach and having interesting conversations with Vera. To be honest, I have to get back into the novel. And because Vera's mother is very strange and connected to a real person. But the writing pulls you along, even though it's so long. and I'm not, and it's not a book that you can even sort of commit to getting done. I don't want to. It's not that kind of book. It's it's almost like reading a very long poem. And I can't wait to have the mind space to even dip into it for a little bit. I hope to dip into it a little bit more over the summer. And I'm sort of like focusing on a chapter by chapter thing. I'm in chapter 7, and I don't know how many chapters there are, but there are over 1,000 pages of this novel, and it's just going to continue. And I kind of like the idea of a book that's never ending. So yeah, she's my newest favorite character. So that's sort of a mixture of the whole crush stuff, favorite character and stuff like that, and favorite author. So Margaret Young, Elizabeth Bowen, and Miss Mackintosh. Now we're going into emotional questions, books that make you laugh and cry, which I haven't really cried or I have felt happy reading these wonderful sentences. I feel happy when I read a sentence that just makes me go, wow, what a great sentence. And there are examples of this in this book. In terms of emotional reads that pulled me along, I would say the audio listen of Franson's Crossroads, I'll put a picture here of the cover, is the most emotional, but it didn't make me read. I don't think I cried at all. And I don't have any beautiful books to report. I mean, in a way, I'm sort of a minimalist. Sometimes I do like all the NRB ones. I like these. I like the art on here. And I do like a minimalist, old-fashioned book like this with the cover. So I don't really have a very beautiful book to share with you right now. And I think we're almost at the end, because the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I don't really do that. I don't have like a TBF because I'm such a slow reader and also very much a mood reader. But I do want to kind of keep abreast of my projects that I start. I thought so Margaret Young is a project. I've put aside All the Pretty Horses. I had a project of a 18th century writer that I wanted to get into, German. I'm a German professor and I read German stuff just for pleasure, not for scholarly reasons. And his name was Jean Paul, and he's kind of been put on hold too. His prose is really weird and wacky and sort of like Lawrence Stern, like Tristram Shandy-esque type prose. So it's a little bit on hold. And right now I'll be doing some videos because I'm participating in Jane Austen July. And it might be heresy for me to say that even though I am enjoying rereading Pride and Prejudice, I'm not really enjoying it as much as when I read it the first time. It's as if I've kind of reached a limit with enjoyment, although I'm still enjoying it. But because I know them so well, and as I said in my introductory video, they're kind of imprinted on my brain. I'm not getting that much more out of them. But I'm really enjoying reading around Jane Austen. I'm reading a biography of her, and I'll tell you more about that in another video. I shouldn't be talking about Jane Austen, but that's sort of stuff I'm going to be finishing hopefully even this month or in the next few months. And I don't have anything I want to finish before, right now, that I'm saying I want to finish before the end of the year, except things that I've started right now. If you know, I don't know, I'm not probably making a lot of sense here. Anyway, that was my mid-year freakout tag answers. Thank you all for watching. Comment away on any of these authors that you're interested in or that you know. And yeah, I will talk to you very soon. Might be doing a stationery video today later on, so we'll see. Talk to you very soon. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.